update. And first I should give my apologies from Uli, who could not be here today, unfortunately, but Annika and I will try to do the updates. So we will speak about topics that we discussed at the board meeting last week. And first I'll give a little bit of brief update of what has been happening. Annika will talk about the overall budget for 2018. And then we will discuss our responses to the IAB report and also the proposal for research community programs. Annika will then talk about the infrastructure life cycle, and we also have you and Rung here to say a few words about the general data protection regulation. So let's start with the quarterly updates. Good news. Both NBIS and NGI have got support from the Swedish Research Council with 17 to 20 million kronor per year for the next 3 years. And not only did we get a lot of money, but we also got a very good evaluation. So the scores could be from 1 to 7, and both of these two technology areas got score number 7, which is the highest possible, so that's outstanding. And they call the NGI the jewel in the crown of Swedish bioscience. And NBIS was said to be at the European forefront. So I think everybody, we can all be very, very proud for what is going on at these two platforms. Annika organized a facility forum here in Uppsala, and there were more than 250 participants, and there was a lot of positive feedbacks from the participants. So this will most likely happen again, maybe next year or 2 years from now. We have got a new SciLifeLab fellow, Lili Milani, who started now in October at Uppsala University, and she comes from University of Tartu in Estonia. So she's very welcome here. We have just started a collaboration with the Wallenberg Centers for Molecular Medicine. And the centers, there are 4 of those in Umeå, in Linköping, Gothenburg and Lund. And we have got special funding from the Wallenberg Foundation to collaborate with these 4 centers. So I have participated in the first steering group meeting, and I also participated in the inauguration of the Wallenberg Center in Lund. And our next big event is a joint meeting for the fellows, the center fellows and our SciLifeLab fellows in March. And here we will have Leroy Hood and Tuula Lappalainen as our keynote speakers. And there will be networking and fellows presentations and career coaching. So I think this will be a great event. National sequencing projects. There was a new call for national sequencing projects in 2 areas, human genome sequencing and biodiversity sequencing. And there was a total of 21 and 27 applications in these 2 areas. The budgets were 33 million kronor. The applications have gone through a review process, the decisions have been taken, and the notifications will soon be sent out if they have not already been sent out to the applicants. There's been a few mini symposium this fall, and it's really nice to see that 100% who attended these symposia said they were satisfied or very satisfied. And then we have another 2 upcoming symposium here in Uppsala. We also have the Science and the SciLifeLab Prize Day. And this will be a really, I think, exciting event, and I hope that many of you can attend, where the 4 winners will present their work. So we have the grand prize winner in ecology and environmental category. Then there are 3 other categories: cell and molecular biology, genomics and proteomics, and translational medicine. And there are 3 winners from the US and 1 from Canada, and their names will be disclosed early December. And those are young scientists who have recently graduated, and they will present their research, they will get a prize, and they will also write a short essay in Science magazine. And it will take place in Aula Medica at Karolinska Institute on December the 11th. and 150 attendants have already registered, and the goal is to go more than 500. So I would really like to encourage all of you who listen to this update to come to this symposium and listen to Edvard Moser, who received the Nobel Prize in 2014. So you will have several really exciting talks to listen to. And now we are going to the budget, and I will hand over to Annika.
Thank you, Siv. So the budget for 2018 was approved also by the board at the board meeting, and I have just a few slides on this. This is all the funding, including the SFO funding. So you see that 2018 we have 13 almost million. That is the national funding. We also have, in addition to that, 53 million that is then devoted to drug discovery and development platform. The SFO funding, you see, is 47 million in Uppsala and 110 in Stockholm. So this is the distribution of funding when it comes to the national funding and the DDD funding. And you can see that the majority of the funding goes to infrastructure, and you can also see the other funding parts there. And if you also include other budget posts that are very much infrastructure related, such as the SciLifeLab data center, we come up with a total percentage of funding to infrastructure of 86%. This is the distribution of the infrastructure funding that goes directly to the facilities, and all facilities, I mean most of the facilities were actually given the information already last year because they got two years funding, but now all facilities have the funding information for 2018. So this is how they are distributed if you look on the platform level. So this is actually all I had here. We'll come back.
Okay, so now we go on to this IAB report and our responses. So this is something we've worked on quite a lot, and especially Uli. And we have written a detailed response to the comments of the International Advisory Board. And the response is based on discussions with the rectors, the management group, the integration directors, the SciLifeLab platforms, the fellows, other staff and members. Several of the SciLifeLab committees of the university have also given us very detailed responses. And last week we also discussed these comments with the SciLifeLab board. And the board still have a few comments and opinions about the responses, so it's still not finalized, but quite close to being finalized. So I thought now that we should go through it quite a lot in detail, because this is important since it kind of defines who we are and what is the mission for SciLifeLab. So if we start, they first sort of made a few very general comments about the global context and challenges facing SciLifeLab. And those were quite tough comments, the first three ones, where they speak about Greater Stockholm and Mälardalen region. They say that we should be a national infrastructure provider, major research center. And they say if we cannot really accomplish this, then SciLifeLab should be its own legal personality, and this remains the only way forward. So this is quite strong statements that they made. And here we have tried to clarify what we are, what SciLifeLab is. And SciLifeLab is first and foremost a major national infrastructure with emphasis on national and infrastructure. And the benefit is or the aim is to benefit the whole country, not just the 4 host universities. And the infrastructure will serve all qualified users and not a small subset of users. And SciLifeLab is a collaborative effort across the 4 universities. So this is our view of SciLifeLab, and this is what we will write in the report. So I have now extracted just a few sentences from the comments that we made, but just to give you the feeling for what we will say in the report. Governance and structure. So they recommend that we have more meetings with the departmental heads and faculty members, and we agree we will try to organize joint meetings with department heads and also with SciLifeLab committees. And then they discuss our sort of agreements with industrial collaborators and industrial partners. And this remains a practical challenge for us, how to set this up. And efforts will be continued to find a satisfactory solutions. We are not quite there yet, but we will aim for this as they recommend. They also want to give more power to the director, and here we state that director of SciLifeLab serves a coordinating role more than anything else. So there are many different areas under SciLifeLab, and the director's role is really to coordinate all of these. They also want to see more common policies, procedures and decisions regarding the appointment and tenure procedures. And here we say that we will harmonize these procedures, which means that we will try to coordinate things so that they work together, but we cannot have a special kind of appointment committee, but we can work together with universities and try as much as possible to make them do things in a coordinated manner. Platforms. So here, number 8 is a quite controversial suggestion. So IAB suggested 20% of the total SciLifeLab resource should be devoted to internal users, which they define as faculty and fellows. And here we respond that the mandate as a national resource makes it difficult for us to prioritize internal users. It should really be open to everybody. But we will have more discussions with the fellows and how we could facilitate the situation for the fellows. But in general, everybody should, have access to the platforms on equal terms, and there will not be any special, little track for internal users. And then they say that all platforms should report and be under the general director of SciLifeLab. And this in general we agree to, but we also know that several of the platforms have a lot of funding from VR and from the Wallenberg Foundation, and we will kind of jointly trying to form steering groups and determine how the funding should be used for these platforms. They also speak about cross-platform access, and we agree completely with the statement, and we will show cross-platform access when it occurs and try to make it easier for users to access multiple platforms. And then they also want to see the establishment of life cycle planning in a transparent and simplified system, and we agree to this, and Annika will speak a bit more about the infrastructure life cycle. They will focus on drug discovery platforms next time when they come. Then they have quite a few recommendations about the bioinformatics platforms, and they say that there need to be a long-term funding, and we completely agree with this statement. And luckily, we now know that we have funding from VR until 2020 and from the Wallenberg Foundation until 2025, which is really a very long-term perspective in the academic world. We also need to develop a clear strategy for data that is generated by the platforms, and here we completely agree, and the newly launched SciLifeLab Data Center will take care of all of these issues. So we think we have responded to number 14 there. They also comment on how user fees, how they are used in the bioinformatics platforms, that currently there are some user fees taken for short-term but not for long-term support. And we have Wallenberg funding for the long-term support until 2025, so there is not a very strong and pressing need for user fees. It's also easier to make cost estimates for short-term and very well-defined projects. Then they say that the long-term plan for the bioinformatics platform is hardware, and that should be part of the SciLifeLab strategy, and this is something that we consider very, very important, and it will be done together with SNEC and the host universities. research, then they have 4 recommendations about research and it all that we should try to organize national research programs. And I should say that these statements have been very controversial. So some people think that we should really do this and others are very strongly against. And as we see it, we are not a research council, so we should not give out research grants. This is not our job. But we have been discussing to form something called research community programs, and I will say more about those in a few minutes. But the aim here is to support the coordination of research projects, not to support the research projects per se. So we will partly, do as they suggest, but not completely. We will not go as far as they suggest because we think that our mission is not to be to fund research per se. That's the role of the Research Council. They also comment on environmental science and non-medical science, that it should be encouraged and given priority, and we should have special calls in these areas. So we will have themes in these research programs dedicated to non-biomedical research, but in general I think that SciLifeLab is doing very well in non-medical research, and we see that many of the top publications that are reported on our website are from non-medical research areas. So I'm not completely sure that non-medical research is actually underrepresented in SciLifeLab. They also have a lot of comments on the fellows programs, and here there is certainly room for some improvements, and it is recommended, or we recommend, that the facility engage in collaborations with the fellows, and we hope to see a lot of collaborations between fellows and scientists in these community research programs. And there has been problems at some sites for just standard laboratory equipment for the fellows when they started. So this is something that can be improved and can be discussed when a fellow starts. What kind of needs does he or she have, and how can these needs be met? So further discussion and regular monitoring of the fellows' situations will be made in the future, and we will place more emphasis on the fellows. And specifically they take up this again, that they should be the 6-term norm requiring regarding the recruitments and the appointments, and here we have to follow the university regulations. And we will harmonize the procedures as much as you can, but again this is something that legally it is handled by the host universities. They also recommend a senior research coordinator which is appointed for the fellows program. And we agree that mentoring is very important, and it is now a key responsibility of the scientific directors to be involved in mentoring of the fellows. Then they also have this statement about the faculty, that there should be a common definition of SciLife faculty, and this has also been a difficult question and a lot of discussion, and we are not there yet to say exactly what we want to do with the fellows, or with the faculty, sorry. But we do know that we want to have the same definition in Uppsala and Stockholm, and the benefits and responsibility of faculty needs to be defined. We had a suggestion that we presented to the board, and they were not happy with it, so we have to now go back and revise that a bit, so that also discussions to be continued. So any further opinions on this is welcome. And it's currently we have faculties, but they do not have really any benefits, and they do not have any responsibilities, so currently it doesn't really mean that much to be a faculty. So this is still a bit open with the SciLifeLab faculty. They speak about research integrity. This is of course extremely important, and all of you who work in the organization should keep your eyes open and report if you see something that is not appropriate. So we have to raise awareness, we have to have a clear path for information sharing if fraud is revealed, but legal responsibilities remain within the university. So we should know what to do and who to report to, but we ourselves cannot really deal with these from a legal point of view. And then they come back to this planning, data collected, storage and archiving, and that efforts at the bioinformatics platform and the SciLifeLab data office needs to be reinforced, and this is a major concern. And there are ongoing discussions between the bioinformatics platforms, the SciLifeLab data center, and host universities. Again, very important. And then they want this to be extended to other organizations that we collaborate with, and this we will do. Human resources, they want to see a career development and related human resource issues for the staff involved in platforms and infrastructure service. And we think this is an important recommendation, and we will set aside special funding just to be able to, respond to this comment. To build activities, maybe make it possible for staff to go and visit similar types of organizations in other countries, to get ideas and to learn more, and to kind of develop their own career and their knowledge, and to also thereby help us develop our infrastructure. We also had comments on branding and how we should do that, and indicate our role as a national life science hub. And this is now also how we present ourselves, that the strongest focus on the brand is on the national status, and we as a hub. We are a hub for, life science in Sweden. And this should be not only in Sweden but worldwide. This is true, we agree. And they suggest that we also try to organize other major conferences more than the existing Keystone Conference, and this is something that we will explore and look into. Then they also say a bit about industrial collaborations, and as I said earlier, this is not so easy from a legal point of view, so we will write a white paper on industrial collaborations and policies for the board. They suggest a common IP exploitation. Again, this is not so easy since the ownership of the IP is with the individual scientist. They comment on clinical collaboration, and also in this case we will write a paper on clinical collaborations and policies for the board. And then they say a bit about what they are going to do in our future reviews. And that was all about the IAB report. Are there any questions about the IAB report?
Wait, get the microphone here.
I'm just wondering, when is the time for finalizing the report and meeting all the questions?
So I think it will be rather soon. So we will now go back and do some small modifications based on the suggestions that we got from the board. And then it will go back to the board again, I think, for final approval. But there is still room if you have comments and there's something you would like to for us to include, and it will then also be publicly available for everyone to read. So I've now just extracted a few sentences. Of course, there are longer statements, but the general content of what we write is here. So then we go on to the research community programs. And so the plan is now to initiate a number of research community programs to facilitate collaborative research across Sweden. And this will include community building, training events, joint research, sharing of expertise, material, methods, data analysis tool, and data. We also at the same time want to strengthen the research profile and brand of SciLifeLab as an internationally recognized hub in molecular life sciences. So at first we will only ask for letters of interest, and the process will later be adjusted depending on what we will get. So what is the aims? The aims is to bring together a critical mass of scientific expertise across several universities in Sweden on a particular theme or topic. We also would like to see links between the infrastructure and the researchers to help developing also the infrastructures and the technology development. And we hope to establish that both established and young PIs combine forces and work together in multidisciplinary national collaborations. So the good thing with science is that basically you can be an excellent scientist with a variety of different personalities. So you can be extremely introvert and prefer to work just by yourself, or you can be extremely extrovert and really enjoy most to work with large networks and many collaborative partners. And both of these two types of doing science is perfectly fine, and both can be extremely successful. I would think that in Sweden it's easier to, if you are more on the small group, doing small group science, and Sweden is doing very well in small group science, but it is more difficult to be competitive in these large network type of scientific projects, and this is something that we hope to maybe help out a bit with aid of these research community programs. Financial contributions, as I said, SciLifeLab is not going to be a research council that hands out research grants. So we will only use this money, can be used to hire a part-time coordinator, arrange meetings for everybody to come together, workshops, training events, share expertise and do discussions to try to increase a specific topic in science. And we are thinking of in the order of about 1 million kroner per year for to support these coordination type of activities. And for host universities, SFO funding may also be used. There could be additional national funding for projects that promote research and development of the infrastructures, but the research support itself is expected to come from the scientists and the host universities. And in the long run, these programs should aim to seek major strategic national and international funding, and most of them will probably already have such funding. So the desired features, what would we like to see? They should be at the highest international level. There should be at least 2, preferably more universities, and this has been a discussion, so some would like us to say at least 3 or at least 4 universities should be involved. There should also be involved 1 or more SciLifeLab infrastructure platforms and staff, and as I said, there should be a substantial external funding already. We hope to see new multidisciplinary links, and applications from all fields of science are welcome. So we've obviously had a lot of discussions about these research programs. We have called them different things. There have been many different opinions, but a working group have currently kind of agreed on having it in this form. There are still a number of questions to be solved, like how many PIs do we expect, and I don't think anyone has a clear idea of how large the group should be, probably something between 5 or 50, so it's very open for the moment. How many applications will be funded? We don't know yet. Which criteria will be evaluated? When the call is out, we should have a clear idea of what criteria will be evaluated. It could be research output, brand of SciLifeLab, theme-oriented events, multidisciplinary research, international leading, society impact, maybe also other criteria. So those are questions that we have as yet not resolved completely. Selection process and time plan. So this is our current time plan, and we hope that it will work. So the SciLifeLab board have approved the principle of these research programs. So not the details, but the principles that we will have them on the meeting that we had last week. The program will be discussed again at the management meeting that we have with infrastructure, with the IDs, integration directors, on a meeting on December 7th. And if these groups can agree and come up with good details to how the call should be organized, we will open it on December the 15th, and it will be opened until February the 15th. And the coordinating PI will then submit an application and a short letter of intent to the SciLifeLab management group. And we will then consult external evaluators to prioritize these proposals, and the top suggestions will then be invited to present their suggestions to the management group, and eventually it will be presented to the board for final approval and budget. And if all goes well, then we plan to start in the summer of 2018, and each program will normally be approved for 3 years. There will also be future round of these calls, and experience from this first round will then be used to maybe adjust the process somewhat. Any questions on the research programs? Yes, there is one question.
will be 1 million per year or totally 1 million?
So the yes, so
So it will be 3 years program. So it will be 1 million per year or 1
Yes.
million totally.
1 million per year, so 3 million in total. I mean, approximately, maybe not exactly 1 million, but approximately 1 million per year.
Okay.
Okay, then we go on to the life cycle of the infrastructures.
I have a few slides here on the life cycle of infrastructure, and this has been discussed previously, but now we're working on some of the details, and we are planning on calls for pilot, a new call for pilot projects, but also call for candidate facilities and candidate technologies, and also call for major instruments during early or next year. SciLifeLab aims to constantly have the most relevant, unique, cutting-edge technologies, and we like to see the infrastructure in a very technology-centric way. And new technologies can either be incorporated into present facilities. So we like the facility life cycle more to be of a technology life cycle within facilities, if you see what I mean. Although facilities are also evaluated every 4 years, and there is a life cycle of facilities also. And in order to fulfill the same, we plan to have a combination of a bottom-up and a top-down approach. Every 4 years we will have an international evaluation, and we've already had one. And at that time, the evaluators were international experts in some international panels. Next time, we are also planning on involving this upcoming national SciLifeLab committee that consists of representations from all major universities in Sweden. In between these 4 years, we'll have a very easy checkup. This is the midterm evaluation, and I will come back to that a little bit. But in terms of getting new technologies, despite that the facilities are expected to and are allowed to use 20% of their time to internal technology development, we are also planning on, as you already know, we are planning on having pilot project calls. And we've had one that was done separately in Stockholm and Uppsala, but now we will do a coordinated call next year, Stockholm, Uppsala, and also invite actually all major universities in Sweden. So this will be funded through national funding when it comes to these pilot technologies outside the host universities, but SFO funding when it comes to the pilot projects from the host universities. So the pilot projects, they get funding typically for 2 years, and they have the aim then to optimize an already existing technology to be mature enough to be incorporated either in a present facility, or it could be suggested by a university as a candidate facility, because if it is a technology that doesn't really fit in any of the present facilities, it could be suggested in these candidate facility calls that we are also planning on having next year. So next year then we will have the midterm evaluation, and this, as I already said, it will be an easy checkup. So we will it will be on the MG level that they will see to that facilities fulfill the terms for funding, more or less. But on the facility will also be able to give a suggested updated budget, and the facility could also apply to incorporate a pilot technology in this call. And also the facility could apply for this major instrument call that we are having next year. And in addition, there will be a new call for pilot projects that I already said that will be open to all universities in Sweden. And we will also have a candidate facility / technology call. Yeah, so that was, and all of you will have information about this before Christmas. So we will discuss this. We are working on the details now because there are many details. I mean, who should evaluate? And we will involve this new established National SciLifeLab committee quite a lot, but we will also involve IAB and also similar approach as we had last time with the international panels. But more information will come, and yeah. That was my last slide.
I have one question, but I
Yeah.
come to you. So for those technology applications that we just applied a couple of weeks ago, just curiosity, when do you plan to have some kind of information about it for those pilot technologies that we applied a week ago or 2 weeks ago?
I actually don't know exactly what technologies you're talking about now. Not.
Maybe it was Uppsala.
I think it was Uppsala. Yeah, I know. It was Uppsala SFO committee that decided to have an additional call. It will be very similar to the centralized call that we have. I have not been involved in the details there at all, actually. But I think it's a very good idea to use the SFO money like that. But I don't have any information about the deadlines there. It's organized within the SFO committee in Uppsala. I don't know, Steve, if you have any information. No. Any more questions? So I leave the word to Johan.
All right. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do about the new law about personal data that's coming. So, as I'm sure you've heard, there's a new law that replaces the Swedish law about personal data. It's called the European Union General Data Protection Regulation. It comes into effect in May this year. And it has some effects on both the facilities and on the researchers. And it's a little bit stricter in many ways. And one of the big things is that you can actually be heavily fined if you're not compliant to this thing. The process for adapting to this new law is driven by each host university. And because they have different procedures that they are not really synchronizing, we have decided that to not create double work, we're going to let each university run its process and let the facilities work with the university where they are hosted. But we will support them in this process. So what we're going to do from the data center is that we will support the facilities with information, practical guidelines about how to work with their specific university. We're going to track the work, make sure that things are on track, and how you interact with the universities. We'll hold an information meeting for facility personnel and researchers probably in early March. We haven't decided exactly the date yet. Also, guidelines will be published on our web pages. And we will reach out to the facility personnel and to facility managers and directors earlier with some instructions or to follow up. And any questions, you can email us about this. Any questions on this? Good. Thank you.
Okay, then we don't have anything more to present today. So, unless there are any other general questions or issues that you want to raise, then I just want to thank you for coming to listen, and you can contact us any day if there is anything you would like to discuss further. Thank you.